Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Madam Web is trying to get ahead of itself because we all know Madam Web is going to bomb in the box office. The only saving grace for this movie is the fact that the budget is not that extreme. But the budget is still considered to be extreme when you are looking at the potential money that this movie could possibly make, given that it's a name that not too many people who are outside of the hardcore fan base are really going to be well aware of. Number two, it's a girl boss movie. The trailer pretty much confirms that. We can basically see what this movie is going to be and already know that it's going to be tied into the MCU, even though obviously it is not part of the MCU. It's its own little bubble story. I mention this all the time when talking about Madam Web. But why are we talking about Madam Web again? Well, apparently the star, Dakota Johnson, seems like she's trying to get ahead of herself and get ahead of the crowd that's going to be bashing this movie, because apparently, according to her, she's worried that a female-led superhero film won't be any good. Now, the funny thing is, we already know that chances are this female-led superhero film will in fact not be good and will in fact bomb, but the reason for which is going to not be good and the reason for which it's going to bomb has nothing to do with the fact that it's female-led. It has everything to do with just how badly it's going to be put together, because the writers, the directors, and everybody under the sun is focused on female-led being the goal versus a good story that just happens to have a female lead, which everybody who knows anything should know the difference. So let's get into this article, guys, from Phantom Pulse. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Like the video to push us out into the YouTube algorithm, and consider subscribing to my manga channel. The link to in the description box below in my link tree. I would love to see you there. So it says, it is truly a dark time for fans of Marvel and DC Comics. Despite being funded by some of the largest investment firms in the world, these two companies spent the better part of 2023 churning out one box office flop after another. Whether it's from a so-called superhero fatigue or from chasing an audience that doesn't actually go to the movie theater, which in my opinion, it has to do with the second one. But yeah, superhero fatigue or fatigue in general, if you're churning out the same stuff for the last 15 years, of course it's going to be some diminishing returns. That's obvious. But ultimately, we've seen movies come out that have proven that it's not just about superhero fatigue. If it was just about superhero fatigue, movies like No Way Home would not have been super successful. Movies like Black Panther would not have been successful from a financial standpoint. There are so many movies that came out that proved that this has nothing to do with superhero fatigue. And yet they still want to latch on to that because nobody wants to admit that they're making bad movies, right? If 85% of your movies flop and 15% are successful, after a while, you got to understand it doesn't actually have to do with superhero fatigue. If they're in the same genre, you still have 15% being successful. So why is that 15% successful and your other 85% not successful? The answers are very much glaring and in their face. They're just choosing to ignore it. And then the second part of it, chasing an audience that doesn't actually go to the movie theater, that's 100% true too. They're pandering to people and virtue signaling to them online when most of these people don't actually go pay for the product that is being virtue signaled to them. They don't go. They never go. We see movies all the time that are massive virtue signaling movies that completely flop in the box office because the people that they virtue signal to didn't actually go support this movie, right? Everybody remembers the Flop Bros. Remember that terrible ultra gay movie? That movie flopped in the box office so bad that the people who were making that movie blamed straight people for not seeing the film, even though the film was marketed hardcore to gay people. And basically, I remember them even saying that straight people need not see this movie because it's for gays, and then gay people didn't even go see the fucking movie to begin with and completely left them high and dry for them to flop in the box office and lose a ton of money. So I think it's hilarious that they virtue signal to people that don't actually spend their money. Same thing with Bud Light. Virtue signal to young drinkers, they don't drink Bud Light, right? They left them hanging high and dry. So it says the recent losses at the box office have crossed into the billions for Disney and Warner Brothers. Madam Web appears to be another disaster in milking the Spider-Man franchise for Sony. We have seen Hollywood make a massive push in the last decade to try and be more diverse and inclusive, which has only resulted in heavily genocentric films and streaming shows that few people seem to enjoy. The most recent addition to this is Sony's Spider-Man spinoff, Madam Web, which features 50 Shades of Grey star Dakota Johnson as the title character. This film while being set in the same universe as Spider-Man will not have an appearance by the friendly neighborhood vigilante. Instead, Madam Web will feature an ensemble of 4 female protagonists and the all-too predictable male villain. The choice to exclude what is arguably the most valuable franchise character left after the exit of Robert Downey Jr. in Avengers Endgame is mind-boggling. I agree too. Why would you make a Madam Web movie and not include Spider-Man? You have to be out of your freaking mind. That is a death note in and of itself. Just by including Spider-Man, you could have gained at least another few $1 million in the box office, tens of millions of dollars easily, just by including Spider-Man. Even if the rest of the film film was garbage, if people knew that they were going to see Spider-Man in the film, you might have a couple of people go out and go see the film. But now that you basically admitted that Spider-Man is not going to be in the film and it's going to be just this completely random story with characters like Madam Web, then nobody's going to want to go see it. It's going to be very few. You basically eliminated half of the people that probably went to go see it or wanted to go see it in the first place had Spider-Man been in that film. This is going to be a very niche movie, and it's going to go to a very niche audience, and you can't expect a massive return when you're trying to be such a niche product to begin with. You know, that just doesn't make any sense. So even though it has an $80 million budget, I would be highly shocked if it makes its budget back. I will. Even though it's a low budget, I still would be shocked. In a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, Dakota Johnson only added insult to injury when she lamented her lack of experience in dealing with blue screen acting. "I never really done a movie where you are on a blue screen," Madam Web star Dakota Johnson said, "and these fake explosions going off and someone's going explosion and you act like there's an explosion." She would go on to say, "To me, that was absolutely psychotic. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be any good at all. I hope that I did an okay job." So basically, you mean to tell me that you hired someone who has zero experience for a particular kind of film that requires certain skills to have, and this person is in this film, why? Just because they just check off a box? I mean, I really don't know. But I guess, listen, they're going to do what they're going to do. We know that they hire inexperienced people. We see them do this all the time because inexperienced people come cheap. That's basically what it is. She then admitted that she couldn't imagine herself playing a superhero. "I got sent this script and I was like, I don't know about me being a superhero. I was sort of just mystified by her powers. I felt like, oh, I would really love to see that superhero. I would love to see a young woman whose superhero is her mind." When discussing scenes with stunt work, she drew comparisons to herself and legendary action star Tom Cruise. Whoa, you don't want to do that. "I'm really good at it seems. I mean, I could do some really wild things with a car. I drove an ambulance. I drove a taxi cab. I drove everything in the movie except for flying through the air and out of a building. But other than that, I'm like, watch out, Tom Cruise." Oh my God, lady. Lady, you are not even in the same thought process as Tom Cruise. You realize that Tom Cruise is a man that does his own stunts, that doesn't rely in fake sets to do so. This guy was on a fucking plane, for God's sakes. Like you realize who you're talking about? You cannot listen. I know it's a joke. I know she's just trying to, poke fun or whatever. You're not in the same breath as Tom Cruise. You're not even close to being in the same category as Tom Cruise. But again, it's a joke, so I'll let it stay as such. This cringeworthy comparison, thank you for saying it for me, to a massive action star like Tom Cruise aside, she may have already said too much to salvage a film that seems as if it would be dead on arrival. Any interest in side characters having their own films has proven to be minimal, and every indicator points to audiences growing weary of intersectional feminism infecting their escapism. Honestly, this last paragraph, I could not have said it any better myself, ladies and gentlemen. This is the problem that's going on with modern day entertainment. This is why it's coined the MCU to begin with. We know that this is what they want to push. We know that if this was back in the day, female-led superhero film, it would have been much better because it would have came from a place of originality. It would have came from a place of actual genuine want to make a good story that just happened to have a female heroine. But now, unfortunately, what they're doing is they're going for the checkboxes first and the story second. And this is why the story always suffers. If it was original, if it came from a real place, it would be totally different. But it's not. It's coming from a place of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is all just fake checkboxing to try to meet certain quotas so that they could get their funding. That's all this is for. And it's quite unfortunate because she's going to feel as if female superheroes cannot be successful when in fact it's not female superheroes that can't be successful. It's bad written female superheroes that can't be successful. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.